Just imagine, for decades, lithium was the absolute king of batteries. It was in practically everything, from the cell phones you use every day to the electric vehicles that cruise the streets of big cities. But little by little, the shine of this metal began to lose strength. Price explosions, fire risks, and disappointing low-temperature performance have begun to expose the cracks in that throne. And it is exactly in this scenario that a new player emerges, with a proposal as simple as it is revolutionary: sodium. An element so common that it could be in your kitchen, but with the potential to completely transform the battery market. The secret is in the numbers. While lithium has become a symbol of high costs, with prices ranging between $5,000 and $25,000 per ton, sodium maintains impressive stability, costing only between $150 and $200 per ton. And the difference isn't just in price. In extreme conditions, such as temperatures as low as -40 degrees, sodium-ion batteries maintain more than 90% of their capacity, while lithium can barely hold 60%. It's almost like comparing an athlete trained for the cold with someone who simply can't stand winter. And if you think these advantages stop there, you better prepare yourself. The useful life of sodium-ion batteries is another point that draws attention. We're talking about up to 15,000 charging cycles. This is almost double what the best lithium batteries can achieve. In other words, it is as if an electric car equipped with this technology could run for years without the owner having to worry about replacing the battery. A saving that is not only financial, but also environmental, as fewer batteries need to be discarded over time. But perhaps the most interesting point is the simplicity of this material. Sodium is one of the most common elements on Earth, found practically everywhere, in the soil, in the oceans, and even in natural salt flats. Unlike lithium, which relies on mining in specific locations and faces a complex and often unstable supply chain, sodium is always close by. And that changes everything. Because when you have easy and cheap access to a raw material, you have the power to control production costs. And speaking of production, the manufacturing process for these batteries is also surprisingly simple. Instead of reinventing the wheel, sodium-ion batteries can be produced on existing production lines with minimal adaptations. This means that instead of billions in investment to create new factories, companies can simply tweak what they already have, an advantage that accelerates the development of this technology and makes it even more accessible. What's even more curious is that sodium is not a recent invention. In fact, researchers have been toying with this idea since the 1970s, but at the time, lithium seemed like a much more promising choice. But as often happens in the history of technology, what was cast aside as a curiosity is now re-emerging as a revolutionary solution. And it's not difficult to understand why. In a world where resources are increasingly disputed and costs are always rising, a cheaper and more efficient alternative always finds its place. When it comes to performance, sodium-ion batteries are not left behind. They may not have the flash of more advanced lithium batteries, but what they deliver is pure efficiency. Currently, these batteries already reach an energy density of 200 Wh/kg, and there is an optimistic forecast that this number will reach 220 Wh/kg by 2026. This means that, although they still do not surpass the best lithium batteries in capacity, they're dangerously close. And the most interesting thing is that this happens without costs skyrocketing. But what's really impressive is these batteries' ability to handle extreme conditions. Imagine an electric car crossing a scorching desert or facing an unrelenting blizzard. In both cases, sodium-ion batteries maintain their performance, delivering energy stably and reliably. In freezing temperatures, where other batteries lose efficiency, they maintain up to 90% of their capacity. This is something that many lithium models can only dream of achieving. And this performance is not just a promise. It is being proven in practice. Companies around the world have already started testing these batteries in electric vehicles, and the results are encouraging. In resistance tests, they demonstrated impressive durability, withstanding thousands of charging cycles without significantly losing performance. It's as if these batteries are prepared to face any challenge the real world can throw at them. But what explains this impressive resistance? The answer lies in chemistry. Sodium is an element that reacts less aggressively with its electrolyte, which means it does not form those dreaded dendrites, tiny, sharp structures that can form inside lithium batteries and eventually cause short circuits. With sodium, this problem simply does not exist. And this not only increases safety, but also extends battery life. Another point that cannot be ignored is the loading speed. While many electric vehicle drivers still worry about the time they spend connected to a charger, sodium-ion batteries are changing that reality. With an ability to withstand high charging rates, they can be recharged quickly even in harsh conditions. It's as if the sodium itself was ready to offer energy immediately. And this competitive performance is not just an advantage for electric cars. It also opens doors to other applications. From home energy storage systems to renewable energy grids, sodium-ion batteries are proving to be a viable, cost-effective, and extremely efficient option. After all, who wouldn't want a battery that works well in almost any situation? And if there's one thing that makes sodium-ion even more fascinating, it's its connection with sustainability. Because unlike lithium, which relies on mining in specific and often controversial regions, sodium is practically everywhere. It is abundant in the Earth's crust, oceans, salt pans, and even industrial waste. It's almost ironic to think that while the world was preoccupied with finding rare and precious metals, the solution to cleaner energy was literally right under our noses. But it's not just the abundance that makes sodium such an attractive choice. The production of these batteries is much simpler and more environmentally friendly. Unlike lithium batteries, which often require cobalt, a metal whose mining is marked by environmental and social problems, sodium-ion does not depend on these materials. This means there is no need to explore mines in sensitive regions or deal with the environmental impacts associated with these processes. It's a solution that not only reduces costs, but also relieves pressure on the planet. And the positive environmental impact doesn't stop there. Manufacturing these batteries uses less energy and emits less carbon, making them a greener choice from the start. In a world where sustainability is becoming a priority, this feature is simply unbeatable. Because there is no point in replacing combustion engines with batteries if the production of these batteries continues to harm the environment. Another point worth highlighting is security. Sodium, being chemically more stable than lithium, presents a much lower risk of fire. While lithium batteries can suffer from overheating and even explosions in extreme cases, sodium-ion batteries are much more resilient. This not only increases the safety of electric vehicles, but also makes them more suitable for other applications, such as energy storage systems in homes and electrical grids. And best of all, sodium is a democratic element. Unlike lithium, which is concentrated in a few countries, sodium can be mined almost anywhere. This means that any nation with access to sea salt or sodium minerals can produce its own batteries, reducing dependence on imports and strengthening energy independence. In a global scenario where natural resources are increasingly contested, this makes all the difference. In practice, this means that even countries that do not have lithium reserves can become major battery producers. Imagine a small coastal nation turning its natural resources into a powerful sodium-ion battery industry. Or a major power that once relied on lithium imports now controlling its own supply chain. The potential is immense. But the real magic of sodium-ion batteries isn't just in their sustainability. It also lies in the ease with which they can be produced. Unlike other emerging technologies, which require the construction of completely new factories and billion-dollar investments, sodium-ion batteries can be manufactured in existing production lines for lithium-ion batteries. It's as if the world has received a technological upgrade without having to start from scratch. This is because the architecture of these batteries is almost identical to that of lithium batteries. They work with the same basic components: an anode, a cathode, and an electrolyte. The only difference is that, instead of lithium ions, they use sodium ions. This means companies can convert their current lithium-ion plants to sodium-ion with minimal changes. It's a smooth, quick transition and much cheaper than building new infrastructure from scratch. And it's not just small startups that are betting on this technology. Industry giants, such as manufacturers in China and Europe, have already started moving in this direction. Companies that spent decades perfecting lithium batteries are now using all that knowledge to accelerate sodium-ion development. It's as if the entire market is changing direction, but without losing speed. Another detail that cannot be ignored is that these batteries are not just for electric cars. They have the potential to transform a multitude of sectors. From mobile devices to large energy storage systems for electrical grids, sodium-ion offers a cheaper, safer, and more environmentally responsible alternative. And with the ability to be mass-produced easily, the cost of these batteries could drop even further in the coming years. The impact of this flexibility is already being felt. Companies around the world are competing to launch their own versions of sodium-ion batteries. Some are focusing on electric vehicles, while others are targeting the energy storage market, where low cost and durability are even more important than energy density. It's almost as if the sodium ion was a key that fits into an infinite number of doors. And for those who think that these batteries are just a promise for the future, it's worth remembering that they are already being used. In China, for example, manufacturers are already equipping urban vehicles with sodium-ion batteries. These vehicles are not high-performance supercars, but they are perfectly capable of meeting the daily needs of millions of people. And it is exactly this accessibility that makes sodium-ion such a transformative technology. And this large-scale production is just beginning. Manufacturers are announcing plans to build new factories dedicated exclusively to the production of sodium-ion batteries, taking advantage of the simplicity of the process and the low cost of materials. And with each new factory, the cost of these batteries tends to fall even further, creating a virtuous cycle where the technology becomes increasingly accessible. But as with any promising technology, sodium-ion batteries also have their challenges. And perhaps the biggest one is energy density. Although these batteries are approaching lithium iron phosphate, LFP, batteries and energy capacity, they still lag behind the most advanced lithium cells, such as the famous 4680, which equips some of the most modern electric vehicles in the world. For those looking for maximum autonomy in long-range vehicles, this is still an obstacle. And it's not just a question of numbers. The lower energy density means that to store the same amount of energy, a sodium-ion battery needs to be larger and heavier than a lithium battery. In a city car, this may not be a problem, but in luxury, high-performance vehicles, or even electric trucks, where every kilo counts, this limitation becomes more evident. It's as if sodium has enormous potential, but has yet to prove itself in the most demanding applications. But the industry is not ignoring this challenge. In fact, this is exactly why so many companies are investing in research and development. Each year, new versions of these batteries are released, with incremental improvements that increase capacity and reduce weight. And in many cases, Manufacturers are taking a hybrid approach, combining sodium-ion cells with lithium cells in a single battery pack. This way, it is possible to enjoy the best of both worlds: the accessibility and resistance of sodium with the energy density of lithium. And that's where another interesting point comes in. The market for these batteries is not limited to high-performance vehicles. In fact, they're practically perfect for urban vehicles where extreme range isn't a priority. For those who only use their car for daily trips, such as going to work, taking the children to school, or shopping, a sodium-ion battery is more than enough. And best of all, it is cheaper, safer, and more durable. Additionally, there's a huge opportunity in markets beyond cars. Energy storage networks, for example, are a perfect application for sodium-ion. Instead of relying on expensive and scarce lithium, companies can install sodium batteries in large solar farms and wind farms, ensuring that the energy generated is stored efficiently and released when needed. It is a simple, affordable, and environmentally friendly solution. And it's not just companies that are realizing this potential. Governments around the world are beginning to support the development of sodium-ion technologies by offering subsidies and tax incentives to manufacturers who adopt this approach. In a scenario where energy security has become a priority, having access to energy storage technology that does not depend on imported minerals is a huge strategic advantage. But the real revolution may be in the way these batteries are being adapted for different applications. Instead of trying to compete directly with lithium in all areas, sodium-ion is finding its own space. In urban vehicles, where extreme autonomy is not necessary, they are an affordable and reliable option. In energy storage systems, where low cost and durability are more important than weight, they are practically unbeatable. And the market seems to have already realized the enormous potential of sodium-ion batteries. The predictions are impressive. Analysts estimate that the global market for this technology will surpass the $11 billion mark by 2033. It's a race that has already begun, and it's not just small startups trying to get into the game. Industry giants, such as China's largest battery manufacturers, are already investing heavily in research, development, and mass production of these batteries. But what makes this growth even more interesting is the flexibility of the sodium ion. Unlike other technologies that have to fight to find their place, sodium ion seems to adapt perfectly to a variety of applications. In urban electric vehicles, it offers an affordable and efficient solution. In energy storage systems, where weight and size are not an issue, it shines with its durability and low cost. It's as if the sodium is simply fitting into places that the lithium has never been able to reach. And as companies move forward, governments around the world are also watching. In regions such as Europe and Asia, policies to encourage the production and use of sustainable batteries are being implemented. And sodium ion, with its reduced environmental footprint and its almost infinite abundance, is a natural choice to meet these demands. Countries that previously depended on expensive lithium imports now see sodium as a chance to become independent and even become technology exporters. And this expansion is not just an optimistic prediction. It is already happening. Electric vehicle manufacturers are starting to test these new battery packs in urban models and even light commercial vehicles. Renewable energy companies are replacing their lithium batteries with sodium-ion batteries in solar farms and wind farms, where cost is a critical factor. It's as if the sodium ion is quickly becoming a key part of the global energy transition. Another point that cannot be ignored is the impact that this technology has on the final price of electric vehicles. With cheaper batteries, the production cost of vehicles also drops, making them accessible to a much wider audience. And in a market where competition is increasingly fierce, Any cost advantage is a huge differentiator. Manufacturers that adopt sodium-ion can offer cheaper models without sacrificing quality or performance. And if the present is already promising for the sodium-ion, the future is simply spectacular. This technology is expected to not only grow in popularity, but become a key player in the global electric vehicle and energy storage market. And we're not talking about something distant. Companies like Giant CTL have already announced plans to mass-produce sodium-ion batteries by 2026. And they're not alone. Other manufacturers around the world are accelerating development, creating a true technological race. But why such a rush? Simple. Sodium-ion solves problems that lithium cannot. For starters, it's incredibly cheap. In a market where the cost of raw materials can change overnight, sodium offers impressive stability. Its price per ton remains stable between $150 and $200, while lithium fluctuates between $5,000 and $25,000. It's the difference between a technology that any country can produce and one that relies on complex and fragile supply chains. And this accessibility creates a unique opportunity. With cheaper sodium-ion batteries, the price of electric vehicles could drop dramatically. Imagine an electric car accessible to millions of people, not as a luxury, but as a practical and economical option. This is much more than a technology issue. It's a social change. It's about making electric mobility a reality for everyone. But the sodium-ion doesn't stop there. It also promises to transform the energy storage market. In electrical grids that rely on solar and wind power, where the ability to store energy is critical, these batteries are an obvious choice. They are durable, cheap, and environmentally friendly. And with the growing demand for clean energy solutions, sodium-ion is perfectly positioned to become a key player in this transition. Another factor that makes the future of sodium-ion so exciting is the constant evolution of the technology. Researchers around the world are exploring new combinations of materials and designs that could further increase the capacity of these batteries. Some companies are even experimenting with hybrid designs, which combine sodium and lithium cells in a single battery pack. It is an approach that allows you to take advantage of the best of both worlds: the accessibility of sodium and the energy density of lithium. And this flexibility is what really sets sodium-ion apart. It is not trying to completely replace lithium. Instead, he's finding his own space, a space where he can shine. In urban vehicles, where extreme autonomy is not a priority, it is perfect. In energy storage systems for electrical grids, it is practically unbeatable. And as technology continues to evolve, it's quite possible that the sodium-ion will start to appear in places no one expected.